The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your host, Dr. Dean Bertram.
Well, welcome to Talking Weird, everybody. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us on this important night of the year. 2022 has been weird and strange and all other just mad things. So we're going to get to all that. But tonight I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest co-host, and it is Emily Menshouse. She's been the host of What the Frick Live, which is always fantastic, since September of 2017. And that show originated with Paranormal Warehouse and has now moved on to the Spirit Realm Network. She has over 24 years of paranormal investigating and participating in small and large scale events. She's been a guest on countless podcasts and radio shows regarding paranormal conspiracies and political topics. You can also see Emily. She's been on a number of different, as a TV personality, on a number of different shows on things like the FNL Network, which is a fashion, news, and lifestyle network, which she might still be on, actually. She's done a bunch of stuff anyway. I could keep talking about all the things she's done, but you should watch What the Frick Live. She's interviewed everybody you can possibly imagine: Travel Channel stars, History Channel people, Discovery Channel people. She's got all kinds of weird and wonderful folks on there every week. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, Emily.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. I really appreciate being part of your show this evening. Thank you for asking me, Dr. Dean.
Well, I knew you'd be perfect. I've got a beard hair in my mouth. If people are wondering why I'm flicking at my mouth. No, it's going to be a great show. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it has been a weird year. I think you and I probably have different highlights of the weirdness. Obviously, probably my central highlight is ongoing developments in the field of UFO belief. So, for example, the congressional hearings in 2022, I think, were very significant because there hadn't been a congressional hearing since the late 60s, which is what led to Project Blue Book, which is what ultimately led to the US Air Force and US government officially not investigating UFOs anymore, because Blue Book said they weren't any type of threat to national security, and essentially it was a non-issue. Not Blue Book, sorry. The Condon Committee, which came out of that, it came out of the congressional hearings back in the 60s. And so it gave kind of the government the permission to beg off and not do it anymore, or the kind of reason to anyway. But one of the interesting things about the hearings we had this year is there's this recognition now that UFOs are a threat to or could be a potential threat to national security again. So while I think we were talking a little bit about the show, while I think to a degree a lot of this supposed leading up to disclosure stuff is just nonsense and there is nothing to it and there are no great revelations, what we do see is essentially a sea change in government policy, where they're again saying UFOs are important and worth looking at. And as a result, you get the media taking them seriously as well.
Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think that the reason I knew that when this was going to take place, we weren't going to learn anything new in many regards, because it's the government, and the government is not going to tell us. They're just going to hang it out there to draw us in, to distract us from something else. But honestly, I think anything that's in the air is actually advanced government technology in many ways. And they just released, what was it, the new plane that they released that looks like a triangle, and then the video of this UFO came out before this meeting took place, was triangular in shape in the sky and stuff. I'm like, and we got the swamp gas incident that happened in the skies, and I honestly think it's advanced government technology that was playing against the government just to see how advanced they were to have actually military people witness something that could be UFO, which it is UFO, unexplained flying object, but I think it's more government regulated.
No, I actually agree with you. I think I've said many times, I think the Tic Tac videos, for example, which their release of them, or at least the story which burst into the front page, I don't know if it was the front page, but certainly it was an important story in the New York Times back in 2017. those videos, which were kind of heralded as some type of potential extraterrestrial technology so far beyond the capacity we have here on Earth, I think that was just government technology, or the whole thing was some type of psyop. Maybe it was to test how military pilots, in this case Navy pilots, would respond to some type of technology they weren't used to. Maybe it was to release this information to do some type of broader psyop on the general public. Maybe it was something to get out there so they could test if there were Russian sources who'd, already accessed the information or something. Who knows? But I do think that type of government release is all controlled information for whatever reason. Even if supposedly it's a leak, it's a controlled leak. So yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of the things which looks like physical technology in the skies are, for the most part, government technology. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
It's so hard to be a guest on a show when you're the one that's always asking questions.
Well, that's fine.
I think a lot of this is a setup for Project Bluebeam. Do you know about Project Bluebeam, and what do you think about that technology?
Well,
if you know about it.
Yeah, I've heard about Bluebeam in passing. That's kind of a false disclosure type project, right? Is that right? Is that a false invasion?
Well, it's things that they're using CGI a lot up in the skies. We're seeing a lot of weird things in the skies lately, not just UFO, but like angels, possible angels, things over in Japan, which I don't think a lot of people know about this, but they actually project QR codes up in the sky. So you should take your phones and scan it to go to different places and things, but in a lot of drone activity going on in the skies too. So I think that possibly it could be maybe trying to plot an alien invasion. It would not surprise. I laugh when I talk about it, but it would not surprise me if the government went that far to distract us from something that they're really doing. And Project Bluebeam using CGI and developing these things that pop out of the sky, and they look real. There was a video I've seen of a high school kids in a gym that a whale came up out of the gym and splashed back down and looked like water, and all the kids were reacting to it, and they thought it was real right in front of them. And that's a little bit about Project Bluebeam, and they're putting it in the skies. I mean, even people are saying like they think that possibly they would see like the second coming of Jesus in many aspects of Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, I'm not aware of all of the technology, perhaps as far as you are, but I do know if there is some type of disclosure or revelationary event like UFOs over every capital city, or the type of stuff we see in movies like Independence Day and science fiction for decades now, I'm going to be super suspicious. I'll be honest. I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it's extraterrestrial. And I find it to a degree disturbing that the UFO community, for the most part, has rightfully so been suspicious about what the government have told them regarding UFOs since the late 40s, early 50s. But they're so eager to get the government to give them disclosure and tell them UFOs are real. So you thought the government was lying to you for 70 years. The second the government says, oh, they are extraterrestrial, you're just going to believe them because it fulfills your expectations.
It's trauma bonding. That's what that is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I call it, I know we're not allowed to talk about government or politics, I guess. It's different, maybe. I call it government trauma bonding, where they give out the problems that we're having, and then they also come in with a solution, and then we're automatically supposed to believe exactly what they're saying after they've given us a problem, or made us question for years. So, I mean, I think that's what they're doing with the UFO community. And I admire the people that work super hard in the UFO community, especially Skinwalker Ranch. Like, I'm really highly interested in Skinwalker Ranch and the things that go out there. Like, out of everything that I've read or researched, and I'm not that big into UFOs, but Skinwalker Ranch I'm drawn to, and it leaves me questions, but I also think it's a triangle that's connected to Bermuda Triangle or the Alaska Triangle, all these triangles, and honestly think too, possibly it's a government testing zone. Oh, you're muted, Dean.
I think there was a problem with my mic. It's good now. It is, but thank you for pointing that out. It's interesting that you talk about Skinwalker Ranch, because when I was looking at various stories I thought we might touch on, this week. One of the interesting ones from the past year was that TV reality star Travis Taylor, who's like the scientist on shows like the Skinwalker Ranch show and Ancient Aliens and various other things. The headline really says it all. Pentagon UFO study led by researcher who believes in the supernatural. Critics dumbfounded by reality TV star Travis Taylor's position as chief scientist. So yeah, those kind of connections make one wonder as well if things like Skinwalker Ranch are part of a greater effort of spreading disinformation, then it's kind of interesting that the main proponent on that of reality television is also involved as a chief scientist of some UFO program in the Pentagon. So.
Well, I think there's always some underlining government officials that are playing some roles in these things. So, but Skinwalker Ranch, out of all the things, and not Area 51, not that, I'm interested in Skinwalker Ranch. If I'd have to investigate anything.
Yeah, I'm interested in window areas, and I know there's certainly been a big focus on Skinwalker Ranch because George Knapp, who's a well-known journalist who looks at these things, is also one of the major alternative hosts on Coast to Coast AM, and he's written a couple books on Skinwalker. And
it's interesting. It's like a bowl, it's like a bowl, and it sits down below the Earth's surface. I don't think it's a meteor that might have sat there, but this is weird, and I know that this is weird talk, but we're talking weird here. But and I know we're getting to the 2022. I don't know if this deals with 2022.
This is all related.
But I think it might also be part of Tartarian Empire. That there was buildings there that was part of the development of the free energy, and those were destroyed, and it left the foundation to be below what kind of like New Orleans, like it's a bowl below the water surface there, and I think it just stays there. That energy just stays in that hub, and the government knows this, and then they use laser technology or psychoelectric weaponry that's been released since the 70s, and they've developed or AKA microwave technology, and they target in on that specific area because they know that that's a hub.
Yeah, I don't know if our audience will know everything about the Tartarian Empire. I've only heard a little bit about it, but the idea is that there was a previous civilization which was kind of written out of history or something. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know that much details either. I've had a guest on that knew a lot more with Tartarian, and I have an LA Marzulli on my show that we're going to talk Tartarian giants and all that kind of energy fields and things coming on my show in February. But I just know that it supposedly that this was a community or worldwide civilization that was built. All the towers, like these cathedrals that we have, were actually like probes or whatever, energy probes that they went off each other, kind of like Tesla, Tesla coils. And everybody had free energy. There was advanced technology. There was cell phones. There was all kinds of these things. And then it was destroyed by a mud flood. And or I don't know how. I'm not an expert in this, everybody. If anybody knows anything about Tartarian Empire, please leave a comment or contact me or Dean, because it would be a really great show to have to talk more about this. But I almost believe, it would not surprise me if we trace back there was some kind of Tartarian development over these triangular places that we have, but it's specifically Skinwalker Ranch, and we have that bowl of a situation, and the government knows this, and it keeps that energy in that field there like a dome.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with window areas. Certainly Skinwalker's the one which gets a lot of attention. I mean, it has a reality TV show, for goodness sake. So, and again, George Knapp championing it, and almost a household name, at least amongst UFO believers and people interested in the paranormal. But there are other window areas around the world as well. For example, we've had Thomas Ferrario on Talking Weird a couple of times in the past, and he's still, I think, the head researcher in an area called Marley Woods in Missouri, which is this
don't know
big
anything
chunk
about
of
that.
land owned by, it's owned by, I think, multiple different rancher or farmer families. And it's very much like Skinwalker. They have weird anomalous lights. They have strange cryptid creatures. They have detrimental physical effects to people. It's very similar. And the late great John Keel, of course, also wrote quite extensively about window areas. He's the person who probably coined the term, actually, the idea that there are parts of the planet which are somehow more receptive or more open or some type of conduit to another world where these things, leak into our reality. So
Portals?
I find that interesting.
Is that portals that you're talking about?
Like portals, portals is a very popular modern word, and I think it's, when I say modern, I mean like literally in the last 10 years. It's that science fiction idea of a blue thing opening and out comes
Quantum
the space.
Leap?
Yeah, exactly that, and Stargate and all those kind of shows really popularized that idea. But the idea of a window area, it mightn't be as visually obvious as a blue portal opening. Although certainly there are witnesses who talk about those type of things, including there's stories like that right out of Skinwalker, where people at night watching night vision supposedly see a hole open in the sky and some creature crawl out of it. So who knows? But so yeah, a window, I think a portal's a very literal way of describing it. But the idea that there are just these places where the veil is thinner and another world can, come in and out of it, or other creatures come in or out of it. In fact, speaking of that, I'll hit another story real quick and then we'll segue back.
Okay. I know we get off track. I'm sorry.
No, it's just fun. I know that was a great segue to something else that I wanted to mention. Just a fun, not fun, kind of scary story, really. But I'm so fascinated, as anybody who watches Talking Weird or Mysterious Library regularly is aware of. There was a story from Dublin Live, which is a media outlet in Ireland, as it suggests, on 13th of September. And the headline was "Woman's Terrifying Ordeal After Hearing Fairy Voices While Stuck in the Woods." And apparently she was skeptical about the supernatural world until she had this experience, and she heard this high-pitched voice that just terrified her. She was walking in the woods, she got lost, and then there was this eerie laugh, which she said, "I don't think I've heard words in the English language. I don't think there's any words in the English language to describe it. I've never heard something laugh like that. I knew something was really, really wrong. I just got this really bad feeling that things were not going to end well." Anyway, she was lost. She couldn't go out. Everything changed, like you often hear in these type of stories from people who it's almost like they go into another world. And she happened to remember the old Irish folk tale story or tradition of how you escape when the fairies have glamoured you, and that is you put a piece of your clothing on back to front, and then you're meant to be able to escape the fairy magic. And so she did that, and then she turned around, and she'd been wandering for a long time. Supposedly her Fitbit had registered an extra 10,000 steps or something than she should have taken. She was lost for hours. Anyway, she changed it, turned her jacket back to front, and she got out of there.
Well, hold on. I have a question.
And that's new. And the funny thing is,
because when you get lost, you get delirious. And I'll tell you this, because I got lost once in the woods of Appalachia with a guy that I was dating. And I was the most calm person out of it. Actually, we were on a four-wheeler. He's like freaking out over all of this, like absolutely freaking out. I had like 20% left on my battery. I'm calling 911. They're sending out search rescue to us. He's freaking out. He's hearing voices. He's like seeing things in the woods. And I keep telling him, no, it's not. It actually stripped some wires that he had in his, this is survival mode for me. This was one of the most bizarre things. We were lost in the woods for 13 hours actually total, but I stripped some wires in there. It hooked it up to the battery of his car and got it hooked to my charger and charged my phone to talk to 911. I charged it, and we had to let his four-wheeler run for like an hour to even get like 3% charged to my phone, 4% to get connected back to 911. But he went bonkers in it. And I'm looking at my map on my phone trying, because I'm still getting connection here to get off here. But we were lost for 12 hours. He was seeing things, he was hearing things. It was bizarre. So I mean, I want to know how insane or sane she was in this. And she's by herself.
True. That's a fantastic
And I was telling
story,
911, I was like, this guy is absolutely losing himself. And when they finally get us, I said, listen, I'm from the city. I'm from Ashland, Kentucky. I'm from the city. I've never, and I am Appalachia country. I love going out there camping, all that kind of stuff. But This was in the woods. It's over by oh shoot, what's that lake? I can't remember lake. It was a movie. I'll tell you that. And I don't know, some things just kept coming to me, and I was like, he's flipping out, so I'm going to act really calm the whole time, and I grouped myself back in together. So I just like to know how sane this person might be. Did she have mental health issues before she got lost? All those things.
Well, that's a good point. Also, of course, the Irish woods probably aren't like the woods here. There's probably
Cave Run is where I
probably
was
have.
at.
Oh, okay. Now, I mean, I probably
Cave
have
Run.
more backwoods here on my property than your average little copse of Irish woods, which people are in. So it's probably harder to get lost in the Irish woods than in Appalachia or in, backwoods of Wisconsin or Alaska or, anywhere where there's lots of wooded areas in America. That said, she may very well have been mad. Who knows? But what's fascinating about it to me is it's a modern example of older fairy traditions where people had these type of encounters, and only by using a traditional folkloric remedy was she able to escape this weird alternative situation.
Did she know the stories that was located through this list? Because expectation.
Yep. I'm sure
expecting something
yep.
also manifests in many ways. There's
That's
power
true.
in expectation.
That's true. She said
I have a lot of questions. You need to get Dean. You need to find her and get her on her show. I'll be in the comment section. I got a lot of questions.
She'd be fun to have on. I mean, the article said she was skeptical beforehand, but like all people in Ireland, I guess she'd been raised on these stories. Because, of course, Ireland's one of the few places in the world which has kept this type of folkloric tradition alive. Many of the Irish are still conscious of the other world or the fair folk or, the she, whatever we want to call them. They're conscious of that alternative reality. Whether they believe in it or not, they've still been exposed to it in those type of folk tales that have come down. Most of the rest of the world just, take this stuff as, literally fairy tale, as in a Disney type fairy tale. But in Ireland, they still take it pretty seriously, which is cool, I think. And also the abduction thing, the missing thing fascinates me as well. And speaking of that quickly, I just watched today, it only dropped recently because we're doing it on Mysterious Library this coming Tuesday night. Jason McLean and I are doing the documentary for the new one from David Paulides, who's famous for the Missing 411 books. And his new documentary, which has just dropped, I think, a week or two ago, is Missing 411, the UFO Connection. Why that's fascinating, and I think an important story in 2022, is Paulides publicly has been very reluctant to say what he thinks is behind these strange disappearances, which he's been recounting in books for a decade now. He's written, I think, about a dozen books now, which just look at mysterious disappearances which tend to have commonalities in the patterns. So somebody will go missing in a national park, the dogs won't be able to find a scent 90+% of the time, the body will be rediscovered or the remains will be rediscovered where it was searched extensively at the time. Maybe the body's discovered in the middle of a path. Maybe it's discovered somewhere very strange. There's all these points which the type of the key case points which Paulides has always talked about, linking this string of weird disappearances, particularly in national parks, which is where he started, but in other rural areas. Anyway, he's never really been comfortable saying what it is. People, I think, including me, thought he meant it was Bigfoot at first because his background was a Bigfoot researcher. Originally, he'd been law enforcement, then he'd been a Bigfoot researcher. But in this new documentary, he's essentially saying it's UFOs or it's aliens, which is, I think a lot of people have recently suspected that's what he thought. And I know from some inside gossip, somebody's told me who knows David very well, says that has been what Paulides has been leading to for a number of years, but just hasn't been comfortable coming out and saying it. But this documentary, he finally says the missing 411, or at least there are missing 411 cases that seem to link to a UFO phenomenon.
Well, there's a lot of phenomenons. And if we want to go back to 2022 with UFO and aliens, there was a woman that's dating an alien, actually married an alien in 2022.
You sent me a video to play. Let's play the video of it, and then you can tell us a little bit more about it. I remember this story briefly. It's a very quick video. Let's put it up.
Okay, Boo-Boo, I want to get one thing straight, okay? Because the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Mirror, even the Menshouse or Evening News apparently are saying that I'm crazy because I'm dating an alien from space. Well, you know what? Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm crazy in love. And I think you're all just jealous because you haven't experienced this kind of love. And the bedroom part of it is just so extreme, it could literally kill me, and you can't handle that, okay, Boo-Boo? Find yourself your own aliens.
took probing to a whole new level, everybody. That is Emanuela Rose is her name. She's a Facebook friend of mine. And she was gonna come on What the Freak Live, but then she's been on some of these nationally recognized or worldly or like in the world shows, Today shows and things like that. And then she kind of got scared and backed out at last minute, which I'll always welcome my guest. I do. I wanted to know more details than just dating it. I wanted to know about her life, what made her get to an alien possible relationship. And yeah, that's a weird 2022 happening.
Was it visiting her regularly? Like, how did you know?
Okay. He visited her. She almost talks about a dream type kind of visitation a lot. And she developed this relationship with this alien. Who are we to judge? At this point in life, I'm 42, and I agree with you, Joe. If by the time I'm 50, I'll be dating an alien also. But I've actually had guys that might be aliens. I don't know. But anyway, she has a really great personality. I will say that. In the shows and the interviews that I watched that were brief, they weren't that long. Her personality, and I kind of like this girl. I like this girl. She's likable. She's fun. But, I don't know that much other than she's dated. And I think she's married the alien by now too, which we had that several years ago with the woman that married the ghost pirate. Remember that?
Vaguely.
I was going to have both of them on my show at the same time. I was really trying for that to get them on at the same time. And it obviously didn't work out, but what makes people go to that level? Is it just to get fame?
Maybe
15 minutes of fame? Or do they really have some kind of psychosis or something attack, or they really having experiences? And
that's a good question. And it might be different for different people. Some might just do it for exposure. Some people might have an experience, whether it's psychological or whether it's paranormal. I mean, it's very difficult to determine. It's interesting because the UFO phenomenon, it's not talked about very much. It's certainly talked about in alien abduction reports, and you joked about the probing thing earlier. But this is a PG show, so I can't go too crazy. But the late, great Jim Moseley, who was kind of the gadfly on the neck of ufology. He'd been researching from the very beginning, and he called nonsense wherever he saw it. And he was fascinated with the weirder aspects of ufology. I was fortunate enough to meet Jim Moseley before he passed. It was in 1999. I was in Clearwater, Florida, doing UFO research. And Moseley, one of the things he thought was funniest about it was all the basically sex stories that the abductees and the contactees had. And one of his main points was, this has been a part of the UFO phenomenon forever. And it's just, there are lots of people who come forward with these ridiculous claims, or what sound like ridiculous claims, with alien husbands or alien brides or alien lovers. But it's not talked about in the more mainstream ufology. Like, it's not something that's going to be talked about in a Pentagon hearing. Do you know what I mean? It's not something which is going to be talked about in a book by a supposedly legitimate UFO researcher. But interestingly, of course, the alien abduction saga, when that became popular, probably slowly from the late 60s onwards, and certainly peaked with Whitley Strieber's Communion and Bud Hopkins' Missing Time in the late 80s, those books were filled with medical sexual type procedures, including things which didn't even border, they legitimately were sexual assault. So it's interesting because there's those kind of lighthearted ones, which was more like perhaps the contactees from the 1950s who married beautiful aliens and said how wonderful their experiences and relations were. And the other side is the abduction side that everybody's much more familiar with, which is also loaded with these type of experiences. Adult type experiences, right?
You gotta look at the comment section. Sasquatch Saga says she wants to file taxes as married. Some do it for dinner at the Milky Way. Joe also said, hey, who are we to judge? Tim says, is that alien pot she's smoking? Good comment section. I honestly think it's government, everybody. And I think it's psychoelectric weaponry that they've been doing since 1974. They accidentally released some records from 1974. So the records that we have in the public to read about this is 1974 microwave technology. We don't know how much advancement would we have from 1974 to now. So in 1974, it said they had actually electric magnetic, this is EMF, and we're all going into this 5G realm, 3G to 5G. So who knows what happened, but it's forced waking vision, some synced with body and motion controlled dreams, reading and broadcasting thoughts, induced changes to hearing, sudden violent itching. Microwave hearing is another one that they released that you can read about. And then forced memory blanking and induced erroneous actions is something else. And this was from 1974. So if this was released, this is just some of it. It's not all of it. There's special, hold on, I'll read this since we're talking about probing. Oh my goodness. Special attention to genitalia area.
Remember, we have to be good as a family show.
Genitalia area. That's all I'm going to say. Look up, government accidentally releases documents of psychoelectric weapons, everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Now think of probing and think that they can control your dreams, which a lot of these people that have these alien abduction things is like in a dream state, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That is interesting. Interestingly, too, speaking of the government doing some of this stuff, Richard Doty, who's the ex-AFOSI agent, most famous for his role in the Benowitz affair, which people might or might not know about. We've talked about a number of times on this show and on Talking Weird, where the Air Force in the late 70s, early 80s decided, or at least this department of the AFOSI decided, that an electrical engineer who lived opposite Kirtland Air Force Base and had picked up messages from the base he thought were extraterrestrial, but were really secret government technology. They thought the best way to deal with him was to trick him that, yes, they were definitely extraterrestrial things he was spying on, and that would throw him off the scent or something to that degree. Anyway, it's a much more complicated and longer story than that. But Richard Doty has always also come forward, and most people don't trust a lot of what Richard Doty says, obviously, because his job was to spin UFO disinfo. But another thing he said is he was aware of programs in the US government which hoaxed alien abductions. And he said this was, although he did the caveat, he said this wasn't to trick people that alien abductions were real. This was used as intelligence operation against essentially hostile intelligence agents, or maybe people from the other side, or assets that they wanted to get information out of who weren't giving them to them. So they would pretend to abduct them. And I guess what better way to get information out of somebody than, have somebody wake up on a surgical table surrounded by gray extraterrestrials. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure your inhibitions go down, and you might say, Lord knows what, particularly if you're also jacked up with LSD or something else that they might have used. So who knows? I don't know.
Next time I go to surgery, Dean, next time I have a surgery or something, or an endoscopy, because I have to have that so many times because my esophagus, I'm going to be thinking about this.
So be careful. And that's another thing, though. You can enter imaginal states from things like, anesthesics and various things which, inebriate us. Like, it's easy to, it's why shamans historically and other people who, worked kind of magic would often induce an alternative state through consuming drugs, because it would let them see the other world. So yeah, if you're anesthetized, you might very well have another experience. It's like laughing gas or whatever they use at the dentist. I think it was Harold Bloom in a book. I think it was Howard Bloom. It might have been Howard Bloom. I get them confused. Wrote in a book, Omens of the Millennium, back in 1999, I think. He wrote that he saw angels when he had laughing gas. And he wasn't somebody who was a crazy new ager. He was fairly, level-headed. And he was like, clearly these things these type of intoxicants or drugs or whatever we want to call them can help us slip into this other reality. So
I believe that.
You be careful when you're anesthetized. You might very well see gray aliens hovering around your bed.
I believe that, but I also have another belief on gray aliens, and we can talk about that on another show. That's my hint saying, invite me back on.
Oh yeah, we'll have you back. You'll find out.
Okay,
that's great.
But with gray aliens, but so we had Emanuela Rose dating, possibly married an alien. We had that one lady that married a ghost. But 2022 was absolutely crazy, Dean, with all kinds of stuff. Like, I think 2022 was probably the craziest year of any topic that we want to discuss.
It was pretty nutty.
Any topic. I'll tell you. I'll tell you this. I'm gonna maybe lean more over into pop culture a little bit. I remember thinking that 2022 is going to be absolutely crazy when I saw Madonna. A Madonna clip. I get on TikTok. I think this was in April or May or something, and her video came on, and this became like super popular all over the place. She scared me. And as a child of the 80s, I was born in 1981. I'm giving up my age now, but Madonna was like the bomb diggity back in the day. Love Madonna, everything. Like, and then I see this video of her. I'm like, what happened to Madonna?
Should we play it? Do you want me to play it?
Yes, play it. It's scary.
I forgot there was that kitty at the end of it.
Yeah, it was. It's okay. What happened to Madonna? Here, okay. She has work done, right? All these superstars, all these celebrities have work done.
Because how old is she? She's in her 70s or something.
70 something. Yeah. It kind of looked like she had a skin transplant, in my opinion. And then she gets really close up. She has these lips. She has these eyes that are really slanted, a lot, barely open, and she's smoking weed. And then I noticed her teeth, though. Not that I'm a big tooth person. I'm like, she looks so perfect here, and then I see her teeth. I don't know. Something about that video terrified me in 2022. And I'm like, what are you doing with your legacy? Like, this is what we do. There's people that pay thousands or have paid thousands of dollars to go to your concerts, supported you. And this is what you give us at 70-some years old? Like, it scares me, and I don't want to fund her in any way possible. I don't know. That was a scary moment of 2022 for me.
I think the problem is today, even people like Madonna fall for this need to still be important. She's not immune from the whole TikTok culture of wanting to continue that eyes on her and fame. And you would think somebody who had that level of success, like you said, would want to preserve their legacy and would want to be remembered in a certain way. But we live in a culture today which is so centric on everybody being front and center and showing their perfect lives. And
That's why
you
she
see
has
it on
children.
you see it on.
That's why she has children to do that stuff.
It's crazy. And you see it on Facebook and TikTok, and you see it everywhere. Just people who now, because of digital technology, think they can be famous because they can broadcast a clip of them dancing or saying something silly or whatever. There is this perpetual need to keep oneself in the public eye. And I imagine Madonna's not immune to that. In fact, maybe she's more susceptible to it than almost anybody else because she's had so much time where she was front and center in the public eye. So she can't let that addiction for attention go. I don't know. That's just my amateur.
Being active on TikTok, though, I just think that honestly, I just don't think superstars or famous people, actors and stuff have a platform on there.
They can't let it go.
It's kind of modern day, like anybody, like Dean, you, myself. I had 800,000 subscribers on my TikTok before I got doxxed and hacked in 2021. I think TikTok is reserved for just regular people that's building their platforms in podcasting or shows. And now these superstars come on and they do these things trying to blend in and they look terrible. Yeah. Madonna scared me. And there's some other Madonna conspiracy coming out, especially since Thanksgiving. And I think I sent it to you, but we won't get into that. Maybe that's another show. But I don't know. Madonna's a mess, and this is not what I thought I would see in 2022.
Speaking of conspiracies, I think this one's real. And speaking of TikTok, isn't it? TikTok's the UFOs, and the candy. TikTok's the Chinese psyop. And I'm only half joking. I've read a number of times now that the Chinese don't let the TikTok type platform in their own country. They have another platform where kids are encouraged to be excellent in sports or academics and, well mannered and all of these things, but they won't let TikTok itself be in China because it encourages, tweens to twerk and to do stupid stunts like eat, Tide Pods or things. So the Chinese who develop the technology won't let it be used the way it's used in the West because they don't want to destroy their own culture, but they're happy to destroy Western culture. So there's a conspiracy for you.
It's a conspiracy, but we got the Twitter files that's coming out with Elon Musk showing how much our government, the FBI, CIA, or other government agencies are all involved in the manipulation on social media with Twitter. All these conspiracy theories that talk about Twitter and Facebook, and I'm a victim of that, it's all coming true, and we're seeing that, and it's amazing and awesome. The reason why the U.S. government has an issue with TikTok is because there's more truth on TikTok, and the CIA, the FBI, the U.S. government cannot control it. They can control in other ways of paying influencers. This is public knowledge. Biden paying influencers to push the liberal agenda, or what their agenda is. It's not all liberal, but what that specific agenda is. Because if China was true threat to social media, China also owns Reddit, Spotify, and Snapchat, and no one's talking about that.
Wow. And even
political I'm getting, Dean. I'm sorry. I know we're not talking about politics.
No, and I think it can be spun into culture quickly as well, because I think we can look at those type of conspiracy theories, which might be conspiratorial realities, by the way. I don't think just because it's a theory means it isn't true. But there's a very weird thing that's happened with the popular, average person's culture. And it ties into what we were talking about before regarding to fairy faith in Ireland, the idea of how you would respond if you dealt with a fairy encounter and what the fairies were. These things were maintained by the folk and were very organic. They spread very organically at a cultural level, and everybody shared the same culture. But today, things like TikTok, while they look organic, they're far more controlled. Even though it looks like, okay, this is a platform for the people, it really is a lot of top-down culture being pushed by various entertainment, moguls and industries on down through the culture. There isn't really a folk culture anymore. Popular culture today is something which is engineered by, record producers and Madison Avenue and Hollywood films. And it's not organic. It's not natural. It's not folk culture anymore.
Well, in that aspect, it is true. But Tim Wilhelm Helm, I hope I say his earlier tonight in the beginning of the show, technically government is crooked. Just look what happened recently. Idaho suspect caught conspiracy theory, but that can't be tracked. He was talking about the Idaho murders and stuff. I learned more about true crime, anything that's politically relevant, anything now, off creators off TikTok that I trust way more than mainstream media. That's probably a big, huge thing in 2022 too, to come to realize that, and I think that's why they want to silence TikTok a lot, because a lot of these people, the internet sleuths of 2022, if we need to have an awards ceremony for these people, these true crime, amazing people that are solving stuff way before police do, any kind of FBI investigators. Wow. I would almost trust, if anything would ever happen to me, I hope that I have TikTok internet sleuths out there that's researching this stuff, following my steps, and finding, because they will solve it way before. I trust them way before any police. That's my 2022 revelation. Magnificent. Magnificent people.
Maybe you need to, is there like an organization for people who do that? Or, independently? Is there like the Amateur Sleuth Society or something?
There's all kinds of them on their true crime people. 10 Years to Life on YouTube. Look her up. Freaking phenomenal. I'd love to have her as a guest on my show. These people, even the slightest little detail, I've learned a lot off of them in the backgrounds and things of stuff, watching vehicles, license plates, timestamps. They've taught me way more in true crime than anything. They are magnificent. And the Idaho 4 murders, praying for that family or all the families involved in this. It's absolutely terrible what happened.
You know, I haven't followed that story a whole lot. I've been out of a lot of non-paranormal media loop for a while, but I certainly will have to.
That's
look
probably the
into it
story
some.
of 2022.
Yeah. I've heard a
too.
little bit about it, but I don't like to comment on things that I don't have a really, deeper knowledge on. I know you had another story you wanted to talk about as well, though. Maybe we can hit, and that was what's happened to, is it Brittany and Yazzie or something you were saying?
Brittany and Kanye West.
Kanye West, that's right.
disappeared. They've disappeared.
That's
Did
and
I send you a video on it? I sent you a couple
you
videos.
sent me. No, you sent me. I'm just trying to pull it up.
Oh,
You-
Jeffree Star.
That's what I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share the Jeffree Star. Where is it? It's got to be here somewhere. The Jeffree Star. What was it? It was from here it is. It was like a Twitter post.
Just
right?
a day or two ago. Let's start at the bottom.
Yeah,
'cause
let's
they posted,
read it for us too, so the audio listeners.
Okay, what a crazy. This is X'd out, and I'm thankful for this. Is why I shared it to you. So, what a crazy year! I escaped the Illuminati in 2021, and they still haven't killed me. Every day, I wake up grateful. Then he posted it in 2020. I was going to expose everything in a matter of days. The Hollywood elite tried to ruin my entire career, which we're seeing with Kanye. Actually, villainized me and flooded the news with lies and to discredit me. If you guys only knew the truth about what they are doing to Britney and Kanye, anyone who challenges the system gets eliminated. Britney and Kanye are both like nobody knows their whereabouts, both of them.
Yeah, I had no idea. You just told me that before the show.
So I know they want to come out as Kanye being anti-Semitic. It goes a lot deeper in spiritual warfare with Kanye and things. I don't want to go into that Jewish type topic, but Kanye is actually a human spiritual warfare going on. He was raised in the church. He was raised in scripture and Bible. And many moons ago, I didn't know this was conspiracy, but I said that Kanye's mom was a sacrifice because she died of just a regular routine plastic surgery that was basic. It was super simple and easy. Well, he just came out this past year that his mom was a sacrifice. Michael Jordan's dad was a sacrifice. He was talking about all these people. We go to Aaron Carter. We all of these people, and they all are speaking. I wish I listened to Aaron Carter more when he was alive, knowing what I know now, because he was preaching this stuff for many, many years, and he was X'd out of Hollywood. He was, what was that guy with, speaking of ancient times, what was the guy with the Egypt movies? You know what I'm talking about?
The ones which just the ancient apocalypse ones that hit.
No.
Recently, Graham Hancock.
Egypt movies. Wasn't he a twin brother? I think he was a twin brother. He tried to expose some of this stuff a long time ago, and he was X'd out.
Were these documentary movies, or I'm not sure?
No. These were like real movies. We would go and watch it. So hopefully somebody's watching this. They can realize he's coming back. He has a comeback movie coming out here pretty soon. But like all these people, Mel Gibson and stuff, try to expose these people over the years. They get X'd out. And that's what happened to Aaron Carter. Aaron Carter was, it was posted. So when Aaron Carter passed away, I was like, I have one question. I had no idea this happened. I tweeted this. Was he found in a bathtub? So then that goes to Whitney Houston. That goes, and then Michael Jackson's tied into this too. Not that Michael Jackson's found in a bathtub, but there's one person in common with Britney Spears, Kanye West, Aaron Carter, Whitney Houston, and that's Clive Davis. Clive Davis, the music industry. But going back, because Kanye has been ripping it up, last 3 months? 4 months, maybe? With everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he said on Twitter that if he disappeared, it's either they killed him or he was being reprogrammed. And what so happens to connect both of them is that Britney Spears and Kanye goes to the same hospital.
Dang.
For reprogramming. So it's crazy. This is deep. I honestly believe that that there is this Illuminati. Now, I hate to say that word because that's used a lot, but I believe that there's a deep state Illuminati. And when they sign their name to that contract, because Kanye several years ago would come back and say his name wasn't Kanye, his name was the artist. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that's in the contracts that they signed, the artist, the artist, the artist. And you have to detach yourself from who you really are to become this artist and go by everything that they do in the bathtub ceremonies. All this stuff is ceremonial. It's crazy. And it's really hard to explain here.
Yeah, I've never heard about this. I've never heard about this bathtub ceremony. I mean, maybe we need to hit that on another show or something. It sounds pretty weird.
Oh, all the stars, you see Rihanna doing bathtub scenes in her shows. Taylor Swift has bathtub scenes, and Diamonds plays a huge big role. The Sasquatch song, I remember. Thank you. But I send it. I talk about Kanye because I everybody don't judge me on this, but every year for New Year's I listen to a song called "Runaway" because and I sent it to you, Dean, before we went live tonight, and just a toast for all the douchebags and all those other people that Kanye sings about in that rap song. Every year I play that for New Year's.
Huh. It's nice to have a traditional song. I know recently I saw a video where he was saying that various other Hollywood stars had relatives sacrificed or something. Does that ring a bell? Like,
well, his mom came out. I mean, I could send you a video. I can go a little bit over if you need to, but
no, that's good. Just kind of feel.
He finally came forth and said his mom was a sacrifice for him to be into this club, this Illuminati. And if we want to go talk about the weirdest things that happened in 2022, I found out Amber Heard pooped in Johnny Depp's bed.
Wasn't that in the court? Yeah, didn't that come up in the court case or something, if I remember?
Yeah, the 2022 court case, Johnny Depp. But Johnny Depp and Viper Room, this all ties in together. Viper Room, all of this is absolutely crazy and mind-blowing.
Does Viper Room have some significance to a bigger occult conspiracy? Or?
Yes.
Is it? Can you talk about
who died at the Viper Room on the street? Anybody know? I want to see if anybody's watching. If anybody can guess, we don't have. I can't give out anything right now.
Yeah, I think I remember who did, but I'll see if anybody comments. If you want to see, so there was a significance to that.
Yes, it was a sacrifice.
I don't think anyone's going to say it was River Phoenix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was a sacrifice with Johnny Depp, and there's other things that goes on.
Is this popular? Is this a popular theory? Like, is this well known, or maybe I'm not into the
I don't know if it's well known or anything, but when because my comeback with What the Frick Live after taking 1 year off, Johnny Depp's doorman was my first guest on the show, and so I was researching a lot about Johnny Depp. I am also a narcissistic abuse survivor, and I'm writing a book called Narcissism from Soulmate to Devil, which has taken me a very long time to do because I have to revisit abuse and it's really hard to get through. So I start researching this stuff and I start connecting the dots during this trial, and it's all connected. Like, everything is connected. And I don't know if Johnny Depp is actually the greatest guy that we want to promote in many ways. Oh, ready for 2023. I'm ready for 2023. I got 5 minutes. I'm in Eastern time zone.
I know.
We're to celebrate this.
We will. We'll wait until the ball drops in New York City, right?
I want to know what Andy Cohen's doing right now, because Andy Cohen, I'm not a huge fan of Andy Cohen. You know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, he's like the guy over Bravo Channel, all of the Real Housewives of Miami, Real Housewives, all this stuff. Last year, and he's good friends with Anderson Cooper. You know who Anderson Cooper's mom is?
I've heard some theory. I know who Anderson Cooper is, but I've heard, I can't remember, but I know I've heard conspiracy theories about the lineage of Anderson Cooper. I can't remember.
Well, Gloria Vanderbilt was Anderson Cooper's mother, and she was a mother of darkness. And she, up above the bed and stuff, there's pictures of Anderson and his brother. there where they sacrifice children and all that kind of stuff is up above her bed. There's other artwork. There's other mysterious things under Gloria Vanderbilt. So Anderson's brother, which we want to talk about all these stars that have siblings or family members that pass away from suicide. Anderson's brother committed suicide. All right. And then Anderson's propelled up in place, but she passed away in like 2019, 18 or something like that. So there's it's super dark and I can't get into it right now, but when she passed away, so to say, I'm just cutting this short, Lady Gaga, Beyonce fought for that position. And I hear Beyonce won that position over that area. There's several areas. And if you want to know anything about this, Jessie Sabotar, which has been on my show 3 times, amazing person. She has a lot of knowledge in it. And she gets tons and tons of views and listeners. She was born into the Illuminati. She was actually being trained to be a Mother of Darkness, broke free from it, got saved, set free, and then started speaking out of it in 2019. And her son was murdered in 2020. His car was run off a road and over a cliff. Goodness. She's been in hiding. Like, this stuff is big time. And Gloria Vanderbilt is one of them. But Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen did New Year's Eve last year. And Andy Cohen was absolutely hilarious. And he was actually ratting out Zuckerberg on Facebook. And he was like, I know what you're up to. I know what you're doing, Zuckerberg. I know what you're doing. And like, it was great. And he got tipsy. He got more than tipsy. He got drunk on camera and he was starting to tell the truth. And then they canceled him out. They canceled him. But everybody loved it so much. I hear he's back doing 2022 to 2023 tonight. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at. But he's funny.
I mean, I'm very sympathetic to some conspiracy theories because I don't think the world is governed as honestly as most people who want to think everything's, roses and sunshine really is. That said, I do hear some stories, like some of these things, and I have the same kind of question, I think, for you that you had about that weird fairy tale I was recounting. Do you think some of these people who have more elaborate conspiracy theories that they're involved in themselves very personally, that to me is always something which kind of trips the trigger. I go, if you're a key player, maybe are you delusional or is it a fantasy life that you're in? Just like I have the same question for some alien abductees, by the way. So do you ever think
if they have deep roots? No. If it's a generational thing, it's a bloodline thing. If they have deep roots, it's a bloodline that's gone through a generation after generation. Then no, like, these people are highly involved and they know exactly what's going on. But if we take Emanuela Rose that married the alien and stuff, like, that makes me question mental health. Where's her family coming from? But as it comes from Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper, and I know their heritage, I know where they come from, their generation and their lineage and their bloodline, like, no, it's the truth. Same with Beyonce, same with, and they marry each other. And a lot of them, I'm not going to say that right now. I got 60 seconds here on my end, by the way, on Eastern Coast, 60 seconds for New Year's.
Yeah, I think we're almost there. It's hard to tell though. I have so many clocks at different times. I'm looking at my MacBook.
I got 48 seconds.
Okay. You can count us down when we get to 10 if you want us to. You can drop I don't know. I'll drop the ball. Where have I got something I can drop?
Can you drop the ball?
I'll drop the lens cap.
I'm going to take the last little bit drink I have.
Okay. Tell me when we're going to start counting.
25 seconds.
Okay. The lens cap's going to drop. I should have grabbed the ball from. Well, it's the only roundish thing I've got. I should have grabbed the ball from
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Emily, and to all of our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us in 2022. I hope everybody's back for 2023. Tell us though too, how do people get a hold of your show's great. Where do they go to watch
Oh,
it?
thank you. Well, we are no longer with Spirit Roman Network. We branched off of them to be our own entity, and then EmilyMenshouse.org, my website, is the best place to go. But we are now on Public United Radio, 107.7 FM radio out of New Orleans, but SoundCloud, you can go on there, just look up What the Frick. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble, but to find all links, just go to my website, EmilyMenshouse.org.
Sounds good. And I think in the show notes, we've got that one site that links out to everything as well. So if anybody watching this on a podcast or on YouTube or Facebook, just go and look in the show notes and you should be able to click through. Anyway, well, again, Happy New Year to everybody. I look forward to joining you all again next week, where I think we have the wonderful Morgan Knudsen visiting us. And please check out Mysterious Library this Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central, also on the Untold Radio Network, where Jason McLean is hopefully over the sickness, which has kept him away for the last week or so from doing any shows. And we'll be talking about David Paulides' new documentary, Missing 411, The UFO Connection. And until then, all of my fellow weirdos and weirdettes, please keep it weird.